Hey everyone, welcome to Ecosystem Session. It is the 8th of February 2021, and today I have Tibet from the Terran Collective working on Hilo with me. Hey Tibet, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, great to be here. So you want to tell me, I guess we've got three forms of introductions. You're going to tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the Terran Collective, and a little bit about Hilo.
Sure. Yeah, so I call myself a communitarian technologist. I've been a software developer my whole life and kind of grew up in hippie community on the East Coast. And I've always been driven by how do we create more connection and yeah, bring people together. And so I've had these dual passions of software and community. And then just in the last 5 years, or really 4 years ago, started the Terran Collective after many years of kind of entrepreneurship and doing different startups, working in the solar industry for 7 years, actually building a company, and kind of seeing my work get destroyed by capitalism one way or another. Decided to create the Terran Collective as a container and a vehicle to do my work in the world with a couple of really close friends in a way that we could protect it and make sure it wasn't corrupted and co-opted or destroyed by capitalism. And to create a way to work with friends and community, kind of create a structure of a culture and a work environment where we could be supported as whole human beings, and then work on technology to enable more trust building and collaboration and connection and community thriving. So yeah, we worked on many things. We worked on with DAOstack for a couple of years on their 𝐓𝐞𝐫𝐫𝐚𝐧 governance, decentralized governance platform on Ethereum. And yeah, most recently I guess just to say the kind of overarching mission of Terran is to amplify collaboration amongst those working to heal and regenerate our planet and our communities. And so we're really trying to figure out systems and tools for better collaboration and cooperation at every level. And so that includes tech as a piece of it, but it also includes thinking about new governance models and ownership models. And a bunch of us live together, and so we're really like trying to think about how we work together better at every kind of in every aspect of our lives, and then sharing what we're learning and trying to spread these new ideas, or old ideas, as it were. Sometimes bringing back old ideas, and then yeah, finally bringing in Hilo. So Hilo, the opportunity to take over stewardship of Hilo plopped into our laps a little less than a year ago. I would say, yeah, last February or so, through a really cool partnership with Hilo. Our friends Ed West and Julia Pope built Hilo over the last, 7 or 8 years, trying to create an alternative social platform to the big corporate silos that was more values driven, and they got it to a certain point and had hundreds of organizations and communities using it. It's really focused on collaboration and communication, coordination within organizations or communities. So not so much the like person-to-person social networking, but like internal organizational collaboration, and then cross-group collaboration as well. And so they got it to a certain point and couldn't really, it was VC backed. They weren't able to raise the next round of funding in the moment they needed it because of various reasons, trying to do something new and difficult, and ended up finding a really cool partner in Hilo, who kind of purchased the IP of Hilo, and I know has been using some of the code internally to work on some of the chat apps running on Holochain, the first chat stuff, and then ended up partnering with us in the Terran Collective to continue stewarding the current kind of centralized version of Hilo that's still running and still has users. And so, our approach and what we're working on right now with it is, how do we take this platform that is really solid and beautiful and well designed and has a really great foundation for a kind of social network collaboration platform, and build on top of it structures for exploring the architecture of collaboration, I guess I would say. it's kind of the same things I've been saying, like how do humans collaborate and cooperate? How do groups work together? How do we create trust-based relationships? And yeah, there's a lot of pieces to that, which I can go into more detail. And then, I guess the last piece there is just in our relationship with Holo, and Holochain is our hope and goal is for it to run on Holochain eventually. At the moment, we're continuing to build on the current centralized version because our passion is a little bit more the kind of user experience and the functionality related to collaboration. And so that's what we're trying to figure out. And but excited to, over time, kind of weave deeper into the Holochain ecosystem and figure out how Hilo can play there.
Very cool. Thank you very much. Quite a story.
Yeah.
So you touched on a little bit at the start when you're talking about having a couple of like ideas and businesses, and that the wave of capitalism sort of destroyed what you were building. But can you tell us a little bit more, whichever angle you want to come from, whether it's now what you're doing with Hilo, whether it's the Terran Collective, or even just you personally? Tell us a little bit more about like what do you believe about the world that makes what you're doing so important?
Yeah. Well, I think, starting just personally working in the solar industry, I really believe that working on climate change was the most important thing to be focusing on because it's such a pressing existential risk for humanity. And I still obviously think it's really important for many people to be working on different ways to repair our relationship with the planet and clean energy and all of that. So, that was where I was focused. And then actually, one of the things that influenced a shift in direction, I had a passion from a really early age about thinking about culture change and some of the issues with our society, kind of like scarcity driven, competition driven, hierarchical, power over dominant way of being in relationship with each other, and then of course with the planet as well. But reading Charles Eisenstein's Sacred Economics really like catalyzed a shift in what I wanted to work on, which was realizing that I don't think we can solve climate change with our current economic systems because they just incentivize the wrong things. They incentivize selfishness and greed and sort of individualism and separation and accumulating as much as you can. And so that was a key moment of shift. And then from there, also like thinking more deeply about, okay, so what are the cultural changes that need to happen for us to then be able to change our economic systems? Because some of it is like redesigning structures and thinking about alternative currencies and UBI and stuff like that. But a lot of it is more deep cultural beliefs about what is important to pursue and what is valuable. And so with Terran, we have kind of like 3 core beliefs that guide a lot of our work. And these are definitely, to some degree come from Eisenstein's work and many others. But basically one is that we are all interconnected, very core to many spiritual beliefs, but shifting from individualism and separation is the way Eisenstein puts it, to connection and interconnection, interdependence, interbeing is the other word that is often used. And then the shift from the scarcity mindset that there isn't enough for everyone, so I have to get everything for myself, I have to get enough for myself to protect me and my family, to recognizing that there is abundance on this planet, that if we shifted our mindset and our culture to focus on providing enough for all, then we would have enough for all. Like there just is enough on the planet. And then the final one is a belief in agency, that we have the ability to choose what we want to how we want to live as a culture, as a civilization. And of course, individually also, that while we're very affected by systems and structures, we always have the ability to choose how we react to them. And I think there's actually a way in which that plays very nicely with the Holochain sort of principle of agent centricness. It's like, empowering people to really choose how they want to interact with technology and interact with each other.
I mean, internally, that's actually evolving. Just sorry to, I do have a general principle that I won't interrupt, but it just seems that, like, because Eric has had, he's describing recently that he's had like almost a 2 or 3 or 4 year battle with the concept of agent centricity, and that it's actually community centricity that he's looking for, because in a holochain, within a membrane or within an application, your accountability isn't to maximize the value for yourself, it's to maximize the value for the community. So I wonder, even as that concept gets bedded down and the wave of apps that are come online, I wonder if it's even more aligned to your approach.
Yeah, that's cool. That's good to know, because what we're working on right now in Hilo, like kind of the next big release that's going to come out in the next month or two, we're calling our helonic architecture, and it's basically redesigning the architecture of how groups are connected to each other and in relationship with each other. And so right now in Hilo, you can have networks of communities, is what they're called, like a group. And so that enables kind of a nesting of one layer of nesting. So you could create teams within a company or just whatever subgroups exist at one layer deep. And so what we're about to launch is infinite nesting of groups, and the ability for groups to be inside of multiple other groups. So it becomes a much more powerful and complex network sort of graph of related groups. And so Hilo is very group centric still, as I said. And we think there's going to be a lot of power in enabling, basically the question we're asking is, how do groups actually collaborate in the real world? Especially as we try and move towards this more decentralized power with ways of working together. And so then how could the 𝐓𝐞𝐾 software map to this real world structure of collaboration and actually both make it visible and enable and support the type of decentralized collaboration that so many of us are trying to do and want to do and are doing, but don't really have the right software for it. So we're about to release that, which is really exciting. I will say that the version we're going to release, enabling kind of infinite nesting and multiple parents, is only the next step, and there's a step after that, which is kind of enabling peer-to-peer relationships, which is not like a sort of parent-child. We saw it starting with parent-child as more useful in the short term, but then ultimately relationships can exist in all different forms, and so there's sort of a next layer of really how do we make clear what the relationship actually means. Like when two groups are in relationship, like maybe money is flowing from one group to the other, maybe people are embedded from one group in another group. And so actually trying to understand what different types of relationships there are. And then the final piece I'll say there that's been really interesting that we're exploring is there's this book and community called Pro-Social, that if you haven't heard of it, I would definitely recommend checking out. It's written by a few different folks, Paul Atkins and I'm forgetting all the authors' names. David, I can look it up, but basically they build on the work of Elinor Ostrom, who developed these kind of principles for managing the commons, for how groups can work well together to do that, and then including some sort of evolutionary science and theory and behavioral science to come up with a set of 8 principles for how groups can best collaborate and cooperate both internally and then with other groups. It's a really powerful, useful framework and set of practices for creating pro-social ways of being in relationship. And so we're trying to embed that deeply, all these principles deeply into Hilo and into our thinking about how groups work together. Yeah, I could also go more into that, but it's been a really, and so we're in like partnership with the authors and really trying to like practice and embed these pro-social principles into Hilo.
Wow, very cool. I would love to learn a little bit more about that for the learning community I'm part of, but that's another matter. That sounds very cool.
Yeah, check out the book.
Yeah, definitely pro-social. Okay. And then I think we've touched a little bit about then the world and like, well, what we go a bit more to you, like, I guess like, well, yeah, what drives you to take the leap into solving these problems and being part of the solution at such a fundamental level? Like you said, you wanted to work in the climate change area. You know that the economic system needs to change, and then instead of just talking about it and buying cryptocurrency, you've really dove in and just really set about living in a way that you think is going to be healthier and more beneficial for the planet. So, like, yeah, what do you, again, what is it within you that makes you want to go so full on into this and live in this way rather than just, I guess like a lot of us sit on the edges a little bit?
Going deep. Yeah, I think, I mean, there's obviously a long life story with many different influences from parents to teachers and books and things. What it boils down to is an orientation that that the kind of only, well, so I guess I didn't even really say what Terran's ultimate vision is. Like, I talked about our core beliefs, but the high level vision is a world where all beings can thrive. And to me, that is like kind of the only vision / long scale mission that's worth working on. And it's actually, my dad says this phrase often, so I clearly learned from him a lot, which is that the good of all is the best for me. It's like shifting this orientation that, like, if we lived in a world where everyone had their basic needs taken care of, it would be such an amazing world to live in. You would be able to walk around the street and look around and not be afraid of other people because everybody had a roof and food and their basic needs. So there's crime would basically disappear, violence would basically disappear. Like, it's sort of like meeting the basic needs of our civilization as a whole. So that's, there's this sort of like hopeful, beautiful vision of what's possible, of just imagining this peaceful, just, equitable world. And then, there's also the other flip side, which is that I see us facing an existential crisis that, we literally, the alternative path, if we go down follow the status quo, is we could create an unlivable planet. Humans could either go extinct or be, dramatically reduced in population, and there would be like an uncountable amount of death and destruction and suffering. So it's like it's a pretty clear choice to me. And it actually, one of the ways it's put in the pro-social book is like, we're facing either global cooperation or global ruin. It's like the path that I see towards this more beautiful world is we have to cooperate as a global civilization, and we have to kind of like evolve to the next, I almost think of it as the next evolution of life on Earth, where it's like you see evolution as being these stages where like life joined forces into a bigger community, from little cells to bigger life forms to complex organs and complex life forms. And now we have to kind of evolve to a civilizational organism that is cooperating in the way that our bodies cooperate. We're all these different organs and cells are working together. So yeah, there's kind of the fear-driven aspect of like, oh God, we could destroy our planet, and the like beautiful vision of what's possible if we all learn to cooperate. And then the way that I think about global cooperation is again, it's like it can't happen from a top-down way. It has to happen through this decentralized, each person in this sort of fractal way of each person, each community, each region thriving and learning to cooperate and be more resilient and more locally self-sufficient. And so one of Terran's framings that is really important to us is that we're very bioregionally focused here in the Bay Area. And so we really work to build a lot of relationship here in the Bay Area and to build connection and collaboration between those folks, again, like working to heal our planet and our communities, but really focus locally, like because we can have so much more impact with the people that we know, the people that are around us, the like land that we're living on. So that's really important. And then when thinking about the technology piece, the Helonic architecture, the reason we are so passionate about it is because it enables this kind of fractal, like each small group collaborating and working well in these pro-social ways, and then each small group working well with other small groups to form larger groups, and so on. And very quickly, with groups of 10 people, if you sort of like scale up fractally, you very quickly get to the whole planet, like 5 layers or something. My math maybe not quite right, but yeah. So yeah, that's it's kind of this like global cooperation at scale that requires the global cooperation at every scale, starting with each small kind of group.
Yeah, and getting the practices right as far as you get them.
Yeah.
In your bioregion.
Yeah.
And then within that, within the collective.
Yeah, and the collective is the place where we start experimenting with ourselves. And it's really edgy. It's challenging. Like we, haven't been able to. We're kind of living on the edge of financial support. We're trying to raise money for Hilo right now, and I think we will be able to, and for Terran, and there's sort of like mingled but also separate projects. But it's really challenging and interesting to really try and do things differently. Like, for example, the way that we've been funding Hilo so far is through really cool partnerships with aligned organizations who want to use Hilo, want to see it exist, and need certain features and have some funding that they can kind of put in to support the development of a scope, a set of features. So right now we're working with the Planetary Health Alliance based out of Harvard, and they're funding the Helonic architecture work and a few other big pieces because they have this massive network of public health related institutions like universities and hospitals that all care about climate change and are kind of working in this planetary health movement, which expands public health to include the health of the planet, because that's kind of necessary for the health of people. And so it's so cool to be funded through a partnership like that and feel like so aligned in our work with them. And it's like stressful to keep going a little partnership by partnership. And so we are trying to raise a bigger chunk of funding and really be able to give this work the energy it deserves. Yeah.
So the money in the Bay Area doesn't trickle down.
Appear.
Yeah, because you're in the Bay Area.
Not yet. We'll see. People are still afraid of doing really radical, like Hilo is open source, and we're trying to really do it as a nonprofit. We still haven't quite figured out what that legal structure looks like. Like right now we have a for-profit LLC and we also have a fiscally sponsored nonprofit. Ultimately, we may want to be a co-op, or because we want to have kind of decentralized governance as well, ownership. But we don't quite know what that legal structure looks like. But the nonprofit world, different kinds of funders have different things they're looking for, and people are used to funding software as a for-profit thing. There's a few examples. Obviously, there's like open source projects like Linux. There's Mozilla and Firefox. There's a couple good examples out there that do survive and get the funding they need. So, but it's still edgy and challenging to find the people who are like really fully aligned with what we're doing, and are excited to jump in and help us make it happen. So that's one of our big projects. Yeah.
Okay, so if anyone out there is watching wants to fund an edgy collective and open source project, then you know where to go.
Yeah.
Anything else that you want to say along these lines before we jump into showing off a little bit of the product?
Sure. Yeah. And I think one more piece that's interesting to bring in is we're also working to kind of revitalize a project called the Collaborative Technology Alliance that was also started in part by the Hilo founders maybe like 4 years ago. And it's basically an attempt to bring together many of the platforms that are being built right now that have similar goals, similar missions and values, and create an ecosystem that's working together more. So it's like, how do we kind of eat our own dog food of collaboration as a technology ecosystem and create interoperability? Really, the same thing that Holochain is working on. The way that the CTA, the Collaborative Tech Alliance, is currently framed is it's a little bit broader than and more general than like, okay, let's all go in on Holochain yet. I mean, that may end up being the solution. But right now we're having conversations like, what does an interoperable user profile schema look like? What is the way that groups should be connected and related to each other architecturally and data-wise to map this kind of collaborative relationships? What kinds of like terms of service and the ways that we want to handle moderation and things like that across, and can we create like standards for that across our platforms, and exploring the technical infrastructure pieces as well, like Holochain. And so there's that thread happening, and there's a number of other platforms involved. There's true.net, there's one called actor.global, there's connective.network. There's like a number of platforms that are all kind of in this space and having this conversation. And then I think there's the conversation. I actually want to bring the Holochain ecosystem more into this conversation and bring 𝐸𝐿 in, and for example, and just start to play more with the Holochain dev space, because it's such a related conversation that we're having.
Yep.
And I've been talking to Fernanda and Emmeline of Commons Engine about, they're kind of doing similar work of bringing together these different platforms, but focused in the Holochain ecosystem completely. And so there's some bridging happening there, which is really cool. I'm excited to see where that goes.
Cool. Yep. Take time, don't they? Sowing those kind of seeds.
Yeah. Collaboration, it turns out it's hard, especially when we're not really used to doing it that well.
Yeah, it's important work.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Cool. So
thanks for all the efforts in that area. And as you say, turns out we're not all that used to it, and one probably not all that good at it. So all of these hard efforts that you're putting in will all benefit from in the future.
Yeah. It's fun. It's exciting when it feels like, and I do feel more and more the spirit and energy of true collaboration happening across our ecosystems, and it feels really exciting.
Yeah. Very cool. And yeah, I think you're going to say, yeah, let's you can share your screen. Why don't you just jump and share your screen and take us through some of the product?
Yeah. So this is the current Hilo. As in its current status, I would call it a beta. It's still very much early adopter phase. We're not really ready to tell all of our friends to use it. And there are a number of, there are dozens of communities and organizations using it actively and enjoying it. Right now, it's most similar to a Facebook group with some key differences, just in terms of its kind of functionality and the way it looks and works. We have posts. This is a community in Hilo of people talking about building Hilo, which is cool. And so we have posts with comment threads and images and attachments. Here's a conversation about kind of the Helonic architecture stuff and ideas that people are presenting about how to create threaded, nested posts and comments. One thing that's unique is when you go to create a post, you can see we have these different post types. There's also projects and events, which are kind of in their own area, but I'll show that in a moment. And so you can create requests and offers and resources. You can add multiple topics, and these act, mostly like kind of Twitter hashtags, but also a little bit like Slack channels, and that you can kind of easily filter by topic and be within a topic space. You can also, and this is where the sort of unique aspects of Hilo start to really shine and that we're building on, is you can post to multiple communities at the same time, and then this post is shared between all of them. And so the same conversation is happening with all the members of all those communities in this one post. I mean, that's really unique and cool, instead of having to like copy and paste to a bunch of different places. And then you can add a location, which will appear on the map, and I'll show that momentarily. Projects right now are pretty basic. They're just like another post type that people kind of join and leave. So you can kind of see who's a member of the project. But otherwise, there's a lot more we want to expand on that kind of project management tools. And same with events. They're, right now they have invites and RSVPs and, dates, but we want to like really expand on this and add a whole calendar. Member directory, you can see member profiles and different information about people and what they've been doing on Hilo. And then the map, which I'm not sure if there'll be very much on the map in this community. I guess you can see all the members who've added locations, and then posts that have locations will appear here too. But this community is not this is more for like place-based organizing. And I can actually show, actually, I could jump to the Terran Collective map, and there'll probably be a little bit more here. Yeah, you can see some stuff going on in the Bay Area, some resources and requests and offers and stuff. So we're really excited about the local place-based aspect of collaboration and coordination. Over here on the left are topics I've subscribed to in this community, so I can filter by these topics. And I guess that, there's a lot more I could show in terms of, like, we have mobile apps, we have notifications. There's a messaging section that I know the original Holochain messaging app was kind of built using some of these components. I'm not actually sure if the elemental chat is still built using these components.
No.
Yeah. But there's that. And then the final piece that's probably interesting to show here is, here's my drawer of communities, and you can see we already have these concepts of networks and communities, like I mentioned, with subgroups. But this is about to really be transformed in the way that we move between groups and their relationships.
So it feels like the Hilo application is, well, I mean, looking at this, it feels like it's really well used.
Yeah. I mean, it works pretty well. There's communities using it very actively every day as their community organizing and collaboration and communication platform. There's a few like core features that are still not here that, I think we want to finish before we feel ready to be like, hey, everybody come use it, and some bugs and, just a little bit of like usability stuff.
Yep.
Like, for example, we're about to roll out threaded comments, which we're very excited about. And also just like, emoji reactions is something everyone's used to from Facebook and Slack and uses for all these different things. Like, it's such a like basic small feature, but it's the kind of thing that you kind of need in any platform to get people to switch.
Yep.
So that stuff like that. And the mobile apps work well, but they're not like fully up to speed with everything going on here. And so we're working on bringing those up to speed. But yeah, it's very far along. I mean, $3 million is put into it, and then plus, the work we've done over the last 9 months on it. it's a really great foundation to build on, and the code is good. It's all open source. I'm happy to like share the GitHub if people want to play with it. We're also really excited to have people come help us and participate in the building of it, either as open source developers or joining building Hilo and participating in the sort of design conversations. Yeah. So that's Hilo right now.
Yeah.
Let's see if I have other questions.
No, well, I think you gave us a little bit of a sense of, threaded comments, emojis, some more parity with the mobile app, things that are coming, and then, get a real strong sense of how you're building this partnership by partnership, getting certain features built out, and at the same time looking for a larger chunk of funding to be able to accelerate the progress. Sounds solid.
Yeah, and the other bigger stuff that's coming that we're really excited to build in the future is like governance tools, building in collective decision making, and then what we think of as financial solidarity tools. So ways for communities, organizations to within Hilo raise funds for a project, do collective budgeting, distribute resources within a community or an organization. I think there's a lot of like exciting potential there. Kind of have like this integrated platform for collective intelligence and action.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Cool, fabulous. Thanks so much for the share. Well, I can't wait for this to be on Holochain as well.
I know. Yeah, and this is something that we're just actually in the process of getting our Holo port set up and trying to like get into the Holo dev community more. It's hard to do it all when we're building a platform and raising money and trying to like just get our sort of our feet underneath us.
Yeah.
But we're really, really excited about where Holochain's going and all the progress recently, and feels like there's some great momentum in the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, no, definitely. It'll be cool when, it might be a little bit away, but yeah, just be really cool when you start to spin up communities on Hilo and then they're hosting their own infrastructure, and it's just, it's exciting to think about what can happen when compute gets unlocked from where it is today and gets liberated within community.
Yeah, and a lot of the people who are using Hilo are excited about Holochain as well and the future of Hilo on Holo. And so I think there's sort of a general enthusiasm and energy moving in that direction.
Yeah, super. Well, yeah, it'll be great to check in a few months and just see the progress, with fundraising, with the product, with Terran Collective, and then I guess there'll be a ton of developments within the Holochain and Holo ecosystem at that stage as well. Anything else you want people to know or want to share before we close up?
I guess I'll just reiterate that we're excited to do this with community. Like we actually just had our first Hilo stakeholder call. You can find a recording of it on Facebook. I think we live streamed it, but we'll also upload a recording to YouTube. And had a really amazing group of maybe 60, 70 people that use Hilo or are excited about it show up. And we kind of presented what we're working on, and then had a lot of just open space for conversation and questions. And we're starting to put together a like governance kind of circle of people who want to help us figure out collective cooperative governance for the platform. So yeah, just if people want to get involved, we're very open to that. You can email us. Hilo@terran.io is a good one, or just hello@hilo.com. Yeah.
Cool.
Your help.
Fantastic. Okay, we'll make sure the links are there as well when this gets uploaded.
Great.
And Yeah, wow, 60, 70 stakeholders. It's a really solid foundation.
Yeah, that's exciting. People who we had a crowdfunding campaign a few months ago as well, and so it's like people who had contributed to that and who are using the platform now. So it's really rewarding to see the excitement and energy there.
Super. Okay. Well, thanks so much, Tibet. It's been, yeah, it's great. I'm very curious to see where this all unfold with you guys.
Yeah.
So you're really working at a number of layers at the same time. So
yeah, I'm very curious myself.
All right. Well, look forward to hearing more. Thanks everyone for watching. It was where we had an ecosystem session with Tibet from the Terran Collective, who are also operating Hilo. And yeah, thank you so much for your time, and yeah, really, really looking forward to the conversation unfolding.
Me too. Yeah. Thanks again.